You are now listening to the fastest show on iSports Radio. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr. welcoming you to another.
What's up, sports fans? Are you looking for the latest on Northern California sports? Then take a trip out west with me, your host, Gina G, on Reppin' the NorCal Sports, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'll be bringing it to you all the way live every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And it's always a packed show. I'll bring you everything Dynastic 49ers.
Apologize there for the sudden technical difficulties, but hello everyone, my name is Daryl Kinsey Jr., the host of the fastest show on iSports Radio. That is the Extra Mile here on iSports Radio, your repeat for all that is sports. I'm here, Christopher Lehman is also here. Chris, say hello.
Hello.
We are getting ready to get into this show. Apologies, there's something going on. I have new headphones to explain what has happened. I have new headphones, and for some reason, after a few hours, I don't know if they go into a standby mode or something, or for some reason they just randomly shut off, but that also kind of affects my system, because I'm running something called Voice Meter, which runs all my sounds through a virtual audio cable. However, if the output device, my headphones, stops working, it shuts the whole program down, and I have to force close it and restart. So what you heard there at the beginning was me talking, that ending, and then me quickly going to commercial so that I could fix everything, and now we are here and ready to start the show in earnest. So, didn't have that much racing this weekend. Only had NASCAR in Richmond. That'll be the bulk of what we talk about here on the program, but there is something special. I was actually there. And someone else was also there with me. She is also here in the chat, or in the Zoom call. You may remember her from our trip to Virginia earlier this year to go to the NHRA Virginia Nationals, where she got a baptism by nitro, which was hilarious. She's now back again to talk about her first NASCAR race, which I'm a bad NASCAR boyfriend, as we've been together for 11 years. This is the first time we went to a NASCAR race. Miriam Elamine is back with us, baby. Hi.
Hi. Woo, glad to be here.
So Miriam got to finally experience NASCAR for the first time, and I will start. We had a lot of fun on Sunday, but you heard me talk to death about my side of it. How was your side of things?
It was fun. A little bit of the majesty was ruined for me because we'd actually been there once before.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I didn't get the whole road opens up and the track rises out of the nothingness, and you're like, oh man, there's the... Yeah, I know what it looks like. We've been there before. It's smaller than I thought. I guess I don't know if it's a small track for NASCAR. I guess
it is. Yeah.
All right. It's interesting seeing how like every track is different, and every track has like its own personality or whatever. Because you'd expect they just be, you know, it's circle, it's oval. They go around. There's not many different ways to do that. There's different sizes, different ways the track goes and banks and stuff, and it's cool to see that up close.
Arthur said she was obviously pumped Kevin Harvick won. Arthur is having a little bit of a renaissance here, seeing his driver win 2 times in a row, so I know he's happy. Arthur will be up an hour. So let's get a little bit into the day, and Chris, jump in whenever you have some questions. It kind of started out really good for us Toyota owners because we got the preferred parking, and kind of just went from there. There was a lot of fun to be had there with Toyota putting on by far the biggest marquee of any of the manufacturers.
It definitely helps that they have the most drivers. They have like.
Well, they don't have the most drivers. They have like 6.
That's not the most. It seems like a lot.
No, half the field's actually Chevy.
Okay, well, Toyota was the one who put their half dozen drivers on all of their trailers, so it looks like they had the most drivers because they were very proud of the drivers that they had. Like, everything Toyota had, they were proud, and they were going to tell you, this is brought to you by Toyota. So it almost made it look like the other manufacturers barely had a presence there, because Toyota was like, yeah, Toyota! So we felt very welcomed as Toyota people. We felt very welcome as Toyota driver fans. I don't know if we were biased because we were Toyota owners, but there was Toyota everywhere. We're like, oh, Toyota party lit.
And that's actually a good point that you made there. And I'll let Chris jump in. Toyota doesn't have the most drivers, but they put such immaculate work into their track day accommodation for their manufacturer owners on the, I guess, civilian side, I'll call it, that it makes you feel like they're a much bigger part of the sport than the results sheet might show.
Yeah, so up here at Watkins Glen, which is my home track, Toyota, they have a like a hospitality deal, which I texted you about, Daryl. I don't know if they had it at Richmond or not. But basically, you go up to like their hospitality area, you show them your keys, which if they're Toyota, you get in. You get like free hot dogs and hamburgers and like water and stuff. And yeah, they do that up, at least at Watkins Glen. I don't know if they do that at other places. They don't necessarily have preferred parking like you guys had. Not that I've noticed, but I also don't drive a Toyota. But as far as the other manufacturers, Chevy has like a bus or like a trailer there with some stuff, but it's not necessarily spectacular. And then Ford usually just has some of their vehicles on display, but they don't really do anything with it. Toyota, at least, like I said, at least up at Watkins Glen, Toyota is the only one that really goes, what I would say is like above and beyond for their customers, not necessarily their fans. I mean, people drive Toyotas and like Chevrolet drivers. But as far as, giving back to their customer base, which is arguably more important than giving back to fans of Toyota racing, they definitely go above and beyond as far as, up here is concerned, and it sounds like down there as well.
Yeah. Richmond is one of Toyota's, I guess, home tracks, especially with them being here in the D.C. market. So they try to do it up, and they did it up well. And I think one of the things that we focused on being there, because I never really did a lot of the outside stuff before the track day. I usually just went in, hit the trailers, and went straight in. But when I started going to races, that was pretty much all there was. But there was a lot more activities out front before the race even started than what even I remember from the last time I went. Miriam, what did you think?
I think it was interesting how much they made it welcoming for kids. We did not have kids, we did not bring kids, but I saw a whole bunch of like family stuff.
Yes.
There was family tent, there was family activities, there was little family giveaways, which was cute. They try to make it welcoming to everybody, I guess.
Yeah, inside and out. We also got a chance to go to the Toyota fan stage. We saw Bubba. A lot of Bubba fans out there, and a lot of folks that look like us out there. And we kind of knew who they were there to see, because I think about 99.8% of them had a 23 shirt on.
Yes, it was honestly, we all know NASCAR's reputation. It was a little bit more diverse than I thought it was going to be, which was nice to see. And yes, the vast majority of us were there to support Bubba, our one guy. But it was cool to see. We weren't like by ourselves.
And that's good because I remember when I first went, it was just myself and my dad. Those would be the only black folks. And then it would be my dad, myself, and my mother when we went to Daytona a couple of times. I told you those stories. But it's definitely exploded in popularity thanks to Bubba Wallace being there. And it was a lot of fun to see that. So I guess we can talk a little bit about the racing product. Then we're going to get back to one of our big highlights of the day. Your first time seeing a race in action, what did you think?
So it of course I've watched a lot of it with you like on TV, and there's a big difference. It's not just regular, like the difference between sports live and sports TV. You know, you don't have your couch, you don't have your snacks, but I found myself really missing my NBC graphics. I'm like, where's all the little labels that tell me what each car is and what place they are and what driver is fighting for what position? And then, okay, I come here. I'm here to watch my one guy. Obviously, I'm here to follow, Bubba's car. But then I lost it. And I'm like, there's a field of 30 cars. I was lost for a lot of it. Some of it, the track, I saw them. They definitely made an effort to help people out. There's a leaderboard in the middle on the pole with the pole positions, obviously. If you have a radio, which we did, you could listen to some of the commentary, and they'll tell you, where people are and what battle for what is happening where. But you still, there's still a whole lot to keep track of at once. You kind of have to watch the whole track at once, which I found kind of overwhelming at times. Sometimes I'll just like give myself a break and I'll come back because there's 30 cars all going at 200 miles an hour. It's a lot going on. You're making sure there's no like accidents somewhere. There could be debris somewhere. There could be an accident somewhere. There could be who's pitting, who's coming out. I don't know. There's a lot.
I will kind of agree with that. Looking at it from that first timer's eyes, which I haven't had since 2006, so it's good to have that first timer perspective voice. Unlike, when we went to NHRA where it's just two cars, there's a lot, Chris, going on when we have 36, which is what we had on a Sunday. When you got 36 cars out there, and then when the field gets connected and the lap cars and the lead lap cars are mixed in, obviously, for those of us that have been watching every day of our lives since I was 10, for example, following the lead lap and the lap down cars is pretty easy. But I can understand that it could be overwhelming for a first timer to try and keep track of where the leaders are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've never been to a track before where you could see like literally the whole track and every car on it. I've only ever been to Watkins Glen. Been there a lot of times, and literally sat in the same place every time. I've never sat anywhere but turns 10 and 11. So I don't necessarily have quite the same experience that you guys do in terms of, like you were saying, keeping track of who's on the lead lap, who's not, getting lap cars in. I mean, you kind of know who the lap cars are. Like when you're at Watkins Glen and stuff, like you just know it's the same people that are always a lap down. But with a road course, I mean, you don't really get a ton of people a lap down unless they have to come in and pit for some whatever reason. But as far as like my race, like I said, I've never been to a race that wasn't Watkins Glen. So, and I only ever see two corners at Watkins Glen. So my experience is a little bit different than what you guys had, but in a month from yesterday, right? Give me just one second. I'm going to pull up my calendar quick. On, let's see, September. Yeah, a month from yesterday, me and my buddy Rich, who will be joining us next week here, we're actually going to be at Bristol for the night race. So we'll
enjoy that. Make sure you take your ear protection. It's going to be horrendously loud.
So we're going to get four races. We get ARCA, Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup. So I will be able to relate to what you guys went through in about a month.
Yep. And I didn't want to keep Miriam. I didn't want to keep you too long, so we'll jump to the last part of this story. We had to do something really cool during the race. We had to try to figure out how to get a piece of Truck Series fender into a 2020 Corolla's back seat.
Yes, shout out to more of the fan experience and the what would you call it? What was the official name of the competition?
It was a pit stop competition. We're going back to actually look at the video to see what the company was with the picture, but
yeah, the pit stop challenge, and Mr. Lifelong NASCAR here went, I can do that, and I didn't doubt that he could, because watching this sport every week, almost every day since you were, what, 9?
Every day since I was 10, been watching since at least 8.
I'm like, okay, so 20 plus years, technically that's 20 plus years of visual experience. He's got the whole pit routine memorized by now. You walked up like, yeah, I could do that. There were not a lot of people signing up for it. There were not a lot of people who would challenge it, other than drunk guys and kids. So Daryl walks up and he's like, he's really gonna do this? He did. And he beat that pit crew member, and no one saw it coming.
I didn't see it coming. If you saw my reaction, I posted the video on Twitter, on my personal and the Extra Miles Twitter. If you saw that, I did not expect for that to go down. I just wanted to get finished, and then I'm starting to walk away because I thought that was it, and then I turn around and there's this big piece of Truck Series fender from Lawless Allen's truck, and they're like, "You're the first one to win, so you get the grand prize. Here you go." So I've got this big, 4-foot piece of truck, and we're walking back to take it to my car, because there's no way I'm going to walk around for the rest of the day with this. And we got about 1,000 thumbs ups, and how'd you get that? And that matter. And everything was good till we got back to my 2020 Corolla SE, or LE, sorry, and tried to figure out how to get it in the back seat. But by God, we wedged it in that back seat, and I brought it home.
I don't see the rush. The fender piece was a great conversation starter. Everyone wanted to stop him and ask questions, and
it was very heavy. Yeah, sheet metal is very heavy, is what I learned that day.
It was heavy.
Yep.
That's like actual metal, though.
Yeah, it's like actual steel when you knock on it.
I have the front fascia from Alex Bowman's car from Watkins Glen 2018.
Oh, Lord, I would not be able to get that in my car.
No, you wouldn't. It's actually wider than a standard car, but it weighs like nothing because it's just carbon fiber.
Yeah.
I could, lift it up with, one finger. Not that that's really saying much, but yeah, the whole thing weighs, 20 pounds.
Yeah.
So how did you get it back, Chris?
Actually, a friend, long story, but, so his son raced quarter midgets, and they're from up here in upstate New York, and, they were down in Charlotte for, a big national race, for the quarter midgets, and so they were touring all the race shops, and I was like, hey, while you're down there, they had their hauler, down there, so I was like, hey, when you go to Hendrick, let me know, I want some sheet metal. And so they sent me a picture of everything Alex Bowman they had, and I was like, oh, there was actually a door, a door with the 88 off the Exalta car, and so I was like, get me that, and they were like, oh shoot, we just left. I was like, go back, I'll make it worth your while. And so they turn around, they go back. They weren't gone for more than 5 minutes. The door was sold, and so all that was left was the front fascia. So I was like, that's humongous. But I actually saw where somebody had taken the front fascia off of Austin Dillon's car and actually put so the listeners can't see, but you guys can. So you've got the front fascia of the car, and they got a desk, their computer desk or their work desk, and then they just kind of took some black leather or something and kind of attached it to the edge of the desk and the edge of the fascia, so it kind of covered it in a way. And so I was like, oh, that's awesome. And so I actually have like my TV up on the wall, and the fascia is right below it, and it kind of like squares up the TV a little bit, almost like like an entertainment center stand.
That's
I have some grand
beautiful.
designs. Yeah, I have some grand designs for it. I don't want to hijack your guys' discussion though, so we can talk about my big plans later.
Yeah,
We
Lawless.
did get several furniture ideas from fellow fans when we were there. Some people were like, "Oh yeah, man, I got a tire, and it's like a coffee table now."
Yeah,
So this is not. This is apparently a thing among
It very
NASCAR
much-
fans. Just make furniture out of the trophies you get.
yeah, it very much is. I have a Alex Bowman tire on my wall from when he won Fantanic, came off the winning car. So I've got
Nice.
that wall at work, and then inside the tire, I actually put a shelf in it, and the die cast is inside of it.
Oh, so
That's on my
cool.
wall at work. And then,
Yeah.
so what my thought was for my front fascia is where the grill cutout is. It's probably like a foot tall by like 2 feet wide. And so I was actually going to build a shelf in there to put my PlayStation 5. So it's actually kind of, and then there's 2 side pockets almost like where the brake ducts vents were. And I was going to more or less make like one big thing and then be able to put the games in on the sides or something, or even like die cast or something. I don't know. I have big plans, not enough time or ambition to do it.
Yep. Eventually, I'm going to put Lawless's sheet metal back here on the wall somehow in my office. I don't know how that's going to happen because it's going to take up
what-
like half the wall.
We
Yeah,
can
the only
talk
thing
after
you
the
can-
show.
The only
Yeah.
thing
but
you can
what-
really do with a door fender is mount it on a wall.
So something that you can do that people do with the front fascias, I have a lot of research into this, but put hooks into the ceiling and run fishing wire down because you can't see fishing wire. So that's how people like hang front fascias on their, like if they're against the wall, they're not really actually like hung into the wall. It's actually from hooks with fishing wire down.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to figure that out. I don't actually own the house, so I'm not the one that's going to be drilling holes in the ceiling, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to that. Anyway, Miriam, thank you for joining us. I didn't want to keep you too long. Just want to go over a quick first-timers experience at their first NASCAR race. Oh, before that, how was the sound?
Sorry, I saw the RE bag that you were carrying, Daryl. Did you
Yeah.
guys have a radio?
Yeah, we had the scanner they had there, but we turned it back in. I probably could have bought a scanner that day, but I didn't even think about if they were even doing that. But we'll figure that out for next year, provided that this race is at a decent time.
Yeah, that really helped with the experience, honestly, because it's just cars going around, and like I said, I was lost. I need some kind of commentary, something.
Yes. All right, sweetie. Well, thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll be able to get to go down there next year. I do plan on keeping those tickets, so
I
Yeah.
thought
see
you
how
were-
things go.
I thought you were coming up to Watkins Glen next year.
We'll see.
You verbally promised.
Wasn't in writing.
It can be.
Oh boy. Okay, I might go to Watkins Glen. I have to see, but
I like road courses.
Everybody.
I do too.
I invited Michael too.
yep. We'll see what happens. But Miriam, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get a little bit more into what happened at Richmond, including Kevin Harvick from bust to championship contender. How did we get here? Talk about this on the other side of the break here on the Extra Mile on iSports Radio. Your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing. and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And we are back here on the Extra Mile here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Daryl and Christopher here with you this evening. We're going to get into Richmond. First, we're going to touch on some late breaking news. Kurt Busch not coming back for Watkins Glen or Daytona due to rehabbing for his concussion that he got in Pocono. The plan now is to try to get him ready for the first round of the playoffs. However, Chris, my thought on it, honestly, if he can't get to that first race in the playoffs, shut him down for the rest of the season.
So Dale Jr. has his book that kind of chronicles his, I don't know the best way to put it, just kind of how he overcame his concussion and kind of got back into racing. And so one of the things that he talked about was just how difficult it was to come back. It's not like a broken bone where, you know, they say, oh, it's going to be 6 weeks and you're going to be just as good as you were. Brain injuries are significantly different. It's not a linear path that you just get from point A to point B. It's a journey, really, is what it is. And Kurt is on his. There's no magical date that you can say you're going to be back to the way you were as of this date. And I think what you're seeing is Kurt taking his recovery very seriously. And personally, I think we may have already seen Kurt run his last race.
I absolutely agree.
I think if we haven't seen Kurt run his last race, I think that Phoenix will be his last race. There's already talk, and not that anything to do with Tyler Reddick is even relevant with Kurt Busch and his recovery, but I've been seeing that, you know, rumors that RCR is going to let Reddick go at the end of the year. Basically let him out of his contract and just he doesn't want to be there, so just let him go. And just with the way things are going with Kurt, I really think that he's not a young guy. It's not like he's 31, 32 and he's still got productive years ahead of him. I mean, he's at the age where he was probably already considering retirement within a year or two, and with the brain injury, I mean, it just, I think it's moved with his timeline. I think that this will be Kurt Busch's final season. Whether we've seen his final race already or not is up for debate. But I truly believe that Kurt will call it a career at the end of this season.
I think he might try to give it a go for 2023, but these brain injuries are something that you just can't play with. I mean, what is the one word we've heard in the NFL over the last decade now? CTE. And the effects that's had. And they take a car crash, a play. Well, every wreck in NASCAR is a literal car crash, and they're hitting the wall at a high rate of speed. I mean, even the wreck that happened that caused the situation in Pocono, that was still about $120 backwards into the wall, which has caused what seems to be a severe concussion, just determining by how long it's taken for him to get back or for a doctor to clear him that he is okay to race. My concern is we know that brain tissue doesn't heal. And if he's already taken this bump, what's the next knock going to do? And what's the next knock going to do? And what's the next knock going to do? And there's already been conversations that the hits in this next-gen car have been a lot rougher than in previous generation cars, which, while lends to the car being a little bit more durable for accidents, seems to be a little bit harder on the drivers. I think Kurt is probably wondering, am I going to go on to 2023? And there have been some interesting rumors with his brother possibly coming over to that team, the way it's going, with the situation with JGR. So there's a lot of moving pieces with Kurt and his future.
Yeah, and the other thing to consider, with Kyle, his future is very much up in the air. And I mean, another thing to consider is Ty Gibbs too. I mean, he while it makes all the sense in the world that he goes to JGR, there's still a very real possibility that he jumps in the 2311 car for a year, kind of gets a feel for NASCAR, understands where he's at, understands how the races work, because it is different than the Xfinity series.
Yes,
and kind of they talk about it in football a lot, how biggest transition is the speed of the game is different. And I think with racing it's similar. I mean, anytime you're talking about going up a talent level, there's an adjustment period. You go from racing with amateurs that I shouldn't say amateurs, but you're racing with a different class of driver in the Xfinity series versus the Cup series. And I think Ty Gibbs to the 45 for a year makes all the sense in the world to me. You keep Kyle and Joe Gibbs. I mean, Kyle has still got his best years ahead of him, according to Dale Jr. And Kyle really is a top flight talent, arguably the best that's ever been in NASCAR. We've debated it. Obviously, when he surpassed Richard Petty's record, but I could see Ty Gibbs or Tyler Reddick in the 45, Kyle staying in the 18 for one more year, and I think that Joe Gibbs and Toyota will pair up if they can't find some sort of sponsor package for Kyle in the 18. I think that you'll see some sort of Toyota, like a Alex Bowman Chevy Goods type of deal, keep Kyle in there for one more year, try to find him some sponsorship, and then whether it be Tyler Reddick or Ty Gibbs in the 45 next year, I don't see it being Kurt.
Yeah, well, they got to do something because Kyle Busch Motorsports in Truck Series is a big part of the Toyota racing development ladder in Cup, or in getting drivers to Cup, and that would be a huge blow to their future. So we'll see how that goes. But we'll talk about what happened on Sunday, and Kevin Harvick ends up picking up the win in an entertaining race in the Federated Auto Parts 400, but he was getting chased down by Christopher Bell. If Christopher Bell had another lap, he would have taken the win from Kevin Harvick. But now everyone is starting to talk about Kevin Harvick as a championship contender, which is weird because just a few weeks ago everyone was talking about Kevin Harvick possibly has one foot in the retirement grave. So it's funny how things change after you get a couple of wins, but it got me back to thinking, this reminds me of the early 2000s as far as competitiveness in NASCAR. As I look at the standings, we've got Chase Elliott with 4. Then we've got 5 drivers, Ross Chastain, Logano, Byron, Harvick, Hamlin, and Reddick with 2 wins. And we're going to come back to this 2-win group in a minute. And then a whole bunch of drivers with 1, all the way down to Alex Bowman, who would be the 16th seed in the playoffs if things started right now based on the points. There are 15 winners in the Cup Series right now. We haven't seen that in quite some time. That talks to this next-gen car's ability to level the playing field. That was the point. But if you're a driver that's not in the playoffs yet, or a driver that is in the bottom half of the order, you are really nervous going into these next 2 races because your playoff chances, even with that win, is not assured.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of go off of a couple thoughts that you kind of touched on, a couple different things that I wanted to touch base on. So as I was watching, and Daryl, you were there, so you're not really you can probably empathize with what I'm about to say, but so as Christopher Bell was what I'm going to say is I really wish that NASCAR had the Formula One AWS advanced statistics. So one thing that I think we all love about Formula One is when somebody is really knocking time off, and you always get the striking distance graphic where they tell you projected how many laps they're going to get there. I really wish NASCAR did that because Christopher Bell, and so with probably about 25 laps to go is when you started noticing Christopher Bell not really starting to knock off the time between him and Kevin Harvick, where his times were actually coming down like 0.3 to 0.5 of a second per lap, by the way. And instead they were doing, and Daryl, again, you wouldn't know this, but they were doing a through the field of the top 10. And they were talking about like, I don't even know, but they were talking about somebody who was like in 10th place. Meanwhile, it just gets casually mentioned by, I don't know, Letard or somebody. They were like, oh yeah, Christopher Bell's really, I think Dale Jr. actually said it. Like, oh, Christopher Bell's really knocking time down off of Kevin Harvick. Like, he's getting like half a second a lap, right? And what do? They start talking about 11th place. And I'm just like, come on. Like, Christopher Bell is stalking down Kevin Harvick, and who was running second? Chris Buescher.
Yeah.
He was half a second a lap on these guys. And they did not show Christopher Bell for probably another 5 to 10 laps after Dale Jr. had said something about him putting half a second a lap on Kevin Harvick. 10 laps later, you're talking about like 5 seconds later.
Yeah.
That's when they talk about Christopher Bell. And that's the thing that, like, when I talk about how much I shouldn't say dislike, but like I've really stopped enjoying NASCAR as much now that I've really kind of full-blown picked up Formula One. And it's because Formula One really focuses on the battle. And I know it wasn't even slated to be on the show, Daryl, and I apologize.
No,
but
you're good.
At Hungary, Max was like 7 seconds out towards the end. He was clearly going to win the race. And they didn't even show him for like the last 15 or 20 laps. They focused on the battles. And when you've got a guy coming 5 seconds, half a second a lap, I'm sorry, but you drop what you're looking at and you start on that storyline. But they didn't do it. And that is why NASCAR, and I hate to say it, but it's not as good. It's because they focus on the wrong things week after week and after week. And I love the idea of the through the field like they do during the playoffs, and I wish they would do it more often. But like, why do it then? You clearly had a storyline to chase. In the middle of the stage when it's boring, that's when you go through the field and you give everybody a little bit of a highlight. But don't do it at the end when you've got some real drama that you can actually take advantage of and sell a storyline on the race. And it was just so frustrating. And this is why, like, I really think that NASCAR needs a major shakeup in its broadcasting. I think that Fox and NBC both do NASCAR a disservice, and I would love to see, like, basically anybody else cover NASCAR, and to get away from the tradition of just the camera being on the car and the lead, or the leader.
Well, Fox is the biggest offender of that. I think NBC has been a lot better than Fox's broadcast this year, but both of them could do with a shakeup of who's running it, especially Fox. But that's a story that we can touch on for another day. What I was going to say, being there, you saw Christopher Bell just eating up the top 10. Like, he, in a race that was, I will admit, pretty tough to pass in, not impossible, but it was tough. He was making it look easy. Like, he was slicing through both the lap cars and the lap down cars like it was nothing. So I was watching him there for a good 10 to 15 laps. I'm like, he's going to catch. I thought he was going to catch Harvick. But by about 7 or 8 to go, I'm like, he's not going to get there. But, man, he's going to be close. And he was. Like,
so they did not show him going through the top 10. They put him on camera just as he was going around Chris Buescher.
That's late.
You could see on the scoreboard every lap, like Christopher Bell knocking off like 1 or 2 cars. Every lap. And they did not show it, and I'm just like, that's what I'm saying. This is where my frustration is. And this, I don't really get on a soapbox very often, but like, why wouldn't you show that? Dale Jr. pointed it out, and you wait 5 minutes to cut to that storyline. You continue talking about people who are solidly locked into position, most likely, and you miss out on probably the most exciting storyline of the whole race, which is Christopher Bell just cutting through that field. And
he was flying through the field. I picked it up once he started going through the top 10. He was hauling, man. Absolutely hauling.
No one at home would even know. That's realistically how it is.
Yeah, they've got to do better of showing the battles through the entire field. I think that's a conversation we've been on. For a few years, I've seen on Twitter people bring that up. I know that NBC does a little bit better of it. I saw on Twitter when I could get... Actually, no, they had Wi-Fi, so I was able to look on Twitter a little bit. I wasn't on my phone a whole lot, but I did see where they were like showing battles in the 20s, which for Fox, if you're outside the top 10, they're not going to show you most times. Yeah. So that was good to see, but they've got to show more of the in-the-moment stories of what's going on. We've got 15 minutes, so I want to touch on this point and then quickly talk about IndyCar before we do Nearest the Win. We look at this list of winners. I forgot most of these people had 2 wins. That is how wild and how up and down this season has been. Chastain got 2. Chastain has 2 wins, 10 top 5s, and 14 top 10s. And he almost feels like an afterthought the way the season has been going, with just how crazy things have been. Joey Logano rattled off 2 wins and then kind of disappeared. William Byron and Tyler Reddick. I straight up forgot they won 2 races this year. That's how quiet they've been outside of their wins. Like, it's crazy how this season ebbed and flowed, even at Richmond. Ross Chastain went from leading a good chunk of that race to finishing a lap down. Kyle Larson, same way. Was up front, leading laps, finished a lap down. This playoffs, once it starts in a couple of weeks, I have no idea who's going to win it. This is probably the first time where you could literally say all 16 that go in will have a chance at winning it. Because no one has been able to sustain consistency. Even Chase Elliott, who's led the regular season point standings since we got into the spring, has struggled the last 5 or 6 races. It is well and truly anybody's ball game when we get to Darlington in a couple weeks.
Yeah, and I don't forget, we still got more races to go, and I still, after this week especially, I still have my money that Blaney and Truex missed the playoffs. I really do. If we don't see a new winner here at Watkins Glen, I think I would bet my next paycheck that we'll see a new winner at Daytona, and it will not be Blaney or Truex.
I mean, Bubba could pick up that win.
Yeah, Bubba. I mean, and especially when you know how it is. You get to plate tracks. It's literally anybody's game.
Yeah.
I mean, look at McDowell last year. Nobody had money on him to win a race, to win the Daytona 500. But you just never know with plate tracks what you're going to get until the end, because all it takes is one wreck. I mean, think about it. One wreck takes out Blaney and Truex. They're out. The better part of the field anyway. And then this year, in years past, I mean, you've seen some drivers with 5-6 wins, and they basically have a free pass through at least one round of the playoffs. But this year, you've got a lot more guys in that one or two win, and so round 1 and 2 of the playoffs are going to be really a big toss up. I don't think you can really put, like in years past where you can really kind of pick and choose who's gonna move on and who isn't. So it's definitely going to be, I think, one of the better playoffs in terms of storylines, and as a big fan of March Madness and kind of any tournament really, it's going to be interesting to see what driver that we consider like a high seed driver who might not necessarily make it through, because there's just not many guys with a big enough lead over the rest of the field, where like Tyler Reddick DNFs one time, he could be out of the playoffs round 1. It's just so close. I think it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, the playoffs are going to be completely insane, and whoever earns the championship, and they will earn it at the end of this season, they're going to be able to talk about how they won one of the hardest championships in recent memory. So we've got 10 minutes. Really quickly, we're going to Watkins Glen this week, Chris's home track. Chris, you are going, aren't you?
No, sir.
Oh, you're okay.
Kimi Räikkönen is going for me.
Yes, I was going to bring that up. This is going to be the most nations represented in a NASCAR race ever, with 7. Kimi Räikkönen's going to be there. Daniel Kvyat also going to be there. We'll have representatives from the Netherlands, Great Britain as well. I'll bring up the entire list here in a minute.
Mexico.
Daniel Suarez. Yeah, but he's always been here. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun at Watkins Glen with this international flavor. Do you think one of our international drivers takes the win?
I would like to think so, but I think I'm going to shock you with my nearest the win pick.
Okay. So we've got representing our international drivers, Kimi Räikkönen from Finland, Loris Hesmans from the Netherlands, Mike Rockenfeller, the great Porsche driver from Germany, Daniel Kvyat from Russia, former Red Bull Racing driver, and Kyle Tilley, sports car ace from the United Kingdom, will be representing countries outside of the United States on Sunday. I think Kimi Räikkönen and Kvyat are going to be the ones going to be watching the most, but outside of Suarez, because he's a Cup regular, I'm going to be watching Rockenfeller. I think he can finish the highest out of the folks that are not the Cup Series regulars as far as international drivers, as it's closer to what he's driven before, sports cars, and at these road course aces, they can haul these lesser performing cars up to some pretty decent finishes.
Yeah, and I think that for my international driver, I'm going to pick Kimi, just because I think Trackhouse has a really good program this year. I think organizationally they've been phenomenal top to bottom. They're setting up cars good. They're pretty well flawless on pit road. They make great strategy calls in the race. So, and Kimi's a good racer. I mean, at the end of the day, Kimi is a phenomenal race car driver. And so I think, if you combine that with what Trackhouse has been doing all season, which has been very consistent, there's no reason to think that their Project 91 car is going to be any type of subpar equipment compared to what they've had, so they're going to bring a hot rod to that racetrack. So I really like Kimi Räikkönen just to kind of top out that international crowd.
Yeah. It's going to be fun, however it works. If Kimi ends up winning, I doubt that's going to happen, but if he ends up winning, it's going to knock the roof off the place. But we are never going to hear the end of it from the Formula One's better than every other series crowd.
I don't think up here there's really a huge Formula One following.
Well, I don't mean up there. I mean on Twitter.
Oh, yeah. Well, you were saying like the crowds erupt. So, yeah. But yeah, I don't really ever see any Formula One merch around here. Like, I think I was telling you before in the pre-show, I just ordered way too much money in Max Verstappen stuff. But yes. I've got like the one hoodie, and I think I'm like the only person that I've ever seen wear like Formula One gear around here.
Wow.
Like I don't think I've seen any other merchandise.
So if Kimi ends up winning, I think most people will be like, "Who?"
I think that's exactly. To be honest with you, I think that's exactly what will happen. People. Who the hell's that? Yep. Sounds communist.
Oh God, let's not even go there. They're our newest NATO ally. For those of us who want to know where Kimi Räikkönen is from. Anyway, we've got about 5 minutes. We got to do nearest the win. We did get a points update from our statistician Matt White. I continue to lead those points, trying to hold on as we get into the final weeks of the season. I'm at 39. Chris is at 25. Michael is at 11. We have Watkins Glen and Gateway this week. I cannot pick the road course master, Chase Elliott, this weekend. However, I think I am going to pick... Who do I want to pick this week? I don't want to pick Bowman. I was going to pick Bowman, but I don't think so.
Bowman actually has a pretty good at Watkins Glen. I mean, he usually finishes top 10 at least. So that'd be a safe bet.
Yeah, just he's little bit of a struggle coming into this part of the season, so I don't know how that's going to affect him.
Yeah,
I think
it's been painful.
Yeah. Provided this person doesn't have any more incidents, I'm going to go with Ross Chastain.
Yeah. So remember how I told you I was going to surprise you?
Yep.
So my nearest to win pick this week is Tyler Randall Gibbs.
Really?
Yep.
That would blow the roof off the place.
Absolutely it would. I like what I've seen out of him. And I think that I was one of those people that was like, he's just here at Grandpa's money. Grandpa's got him in his spot here. But he's actually really impressed me so far.
I kept telling y'all he's a good driver. I stood on the Twitter Ty Gibbs soapbox and said he is a good driver. Now you all believe me.
Yeah. So it's shocking to me. I didn't think I would ever say his name for nearest the win. But I think that with a road course, it kind of really opens up the book in a way that like Richmond doesn't. So yeah, we're gonna go with Ty Gibbs and we're gonna roll with it. See what happens. It definitely. I mean, he's not eligible for the playoffs, obviously. So it's not like it would shake up that at all. But it would be. I think it would be interesting. I think it'd be a big shakeup, and that it would rock the NASCAR world because people would not know what to think.
Yeah, Arthur says Ty Gibbs isn't winning Watkins Glen. I appreciate you, but it's not going to happen. We got 2 minutes.
Well,
gotta get
Arthur,
the IndyCar.
Your invitation to be a guest on this show is now revoked.
We got IndyCar coming up this weekend, Gateway. This is going to be a fun race, getting down to the brass tacks of the championship. I took Pelot last time out. I'm taking Scott Dixon this week. Chris, who you got?
Who did I pick Newgarden last?
You picked Newgarden last.
I did. I have not won yet with Pelot. Colton Hurd has hurt me too many times.
He's hurt a lot of people this year.
I'm going to go Scott McLaughlin.
All right. So that'll be our picks. We've got a minute, so we're not going to do the long rundown this time at the end of it. Remember, we're on Twitter at The Extra Mile. Make sure to follow our social media pages, iSports Radio, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Chris is at Fiji Sims. I'm at DK Jr. 12. Thank you guys so much. Arthur Parsons coming up next to the Bayou Bulletin. For Chris, I'm Daryl. This has been The Extra Mile, and we'll see you at the next green flag. Good night, everybody.